Well, I saw something with his soccer team. You know how like they got that new facility for the Celtics and the new facility for the.
Yes. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're starting with sports. We're talking about venues for sports teams, and I was bragging on the fact that Massachusetts has never put a penny into venues for sports teams, and we have 4 of the most competitive sports teams in the country. And Sue was asking about the Revolution getting a new purpose-built soccer stadium.
Yeah.
So if any of you know, please let us know, because we apparently don't know. Anyway, this is the fun show here at Big TV. This is the October 22nd edition of the fun show. And we're glad to have you here. Michael is once again hunting around between the black and the white, trying to find a tune on the Cura keyboard over there. Last week I said, "What have you found, sir?" With a wry smile, he produces it. I'm Arch O'Reilly. Sitting between us is Susan Harrington, and we're back once again at our disheveled table here. I'm wearing my Harvard shirt.
I was going to say, yeah, crimson.
Somewhat to commemorate the fact that it's entirely possible that this year's Harvard team will turn out to be the worst team in 20 years at Harvard.
They keep trying, though.
What do they say? You can't fall off the floor.
Can't fall off the floor.
Not bad.
I don't know. There was apparently a big college party the other day where they exactly did
well, they
that.
fell through it, though.
They landed.
Yeah,
I
poor
mean,
kids.
they're dancing now like Watusi
Yeah.
warriors or
You
something.
jump up
with
and
all
down.
this
Yeah.
Well, you know, in Bermuda, that's what they refer to.
as
They call
jump.
as jump ups.
Jump
up.
When they-
Jump
all
ball.
that-
Yeah,
the jump up, the
but they
West
do it on
Indians.
the ground, not on a wooden
No,
dance
no.
floor.
Well, no. They talk about other Caribbean
Yeah,
people. They
Oh,
jump.
because if you listen
This
to any
is
certain
this-
Caribbean music.
this is a disparaging term.
Yeah.
is
Well,
it?
yeah. They call it. Yeah.
But all this rock guys
Anyway.
and this-
Yeah.
Nobody
Poor
was
kid.
all
Nobody got.
jumping.
I mean,
nobody
some
was
people got hurt, but
killed,
nobody was
fortunately.
thank
So
God.
that's
they
good.
all landed in the cellar.
Anyway, tomorrow.
Okay.
Today, interestingly enough, is the first day of early voting in Massachusetts.
Yes.
I'm not quite sure about this early voting and stuff, but there again, when much of our nation is suffering unprecedented voter suppression, I guess the fact that they're making it a little easier to vote in Massachusetts is good. And tomorrow, much to my surprise and amazement, is the first game of the World Series at Fenway Park.
And
Last
Rudolph-
week, I said that my putting down the Red Sox seemed to have good mojo for them.
I think
so. They're going to be swept 4 straight by the Dodgers,
4 straight. We both. I agree.
and as long as the muses are not listening, maybe that'll help them.
Could help. Could
Maybe
help.
that'll help them. I mean, I've grown to like their manager so much, which is interesting because Michael spent the last few years saying, when are they going to get rid of the
Well,
old
they got
manager?
rid of Fallon or whatever.
I like
his name
him, so
was.
I'm going to feel good if he wins.
I do too. I
And
feel good.
and
Even though he over-rested Sale there, I think.
well, you know, he had to recover from his belly
his
button
belly
ring.
ring.
Right.
These guys, I don't know
No,
what's
that
going
was
on
funny.
with them.
That was a joke.
It was a joke.
But it was a joke, yeah.
I hope it
Yeah,
was.
he had an upset stomach. But I'll tell you, if I'm watching it and they bring in this bearded wonder in the 9th inning,
Kell,
I'm turning it off and I'll wait for the news because I cannot watch this guy pitch.
at the beginning of the year, he pitched nice, good, clean stuff.
It's all heart attack city with him,
I know.
you know.
Every other pitch is.
And you know,
I can't watch it now.
he comes in, he's the great stopper and the great closer, and he can't seem to find the plate, and he walks people, and he gives up runs. And
He ain't giving back any money,
he
though.
No.
but he looks, but he wins. He wins most of them.
Yeah, he wins.
And he looks like, you know, the
he out
team captain of the House of David.
Yeah, he tires out the other team. I think.
I have decided, I have learned in my old age.
I didn't
that-
think you were that old, though.
Thank you, sir. That's why I do this show, so I can feel young.
Oh, okay.
I don't like beards.
I don't like beards.
I don't
either.
really like beards.
I don't like them either.
Why? Because do you think it
don't-
masks their expression?
No, it's just the aesthetic. I don't
Oh.
like beards. When Stephen Colbert came back from vacation with a beard, I honest to God thought that he wasn't as good as he was before. You know? And then finally I turned it on and he'd shaved and things were better. But that's an interesting thing about shows like Colbert's Show and
Jimmy Kimmel?
the guy who I can't quite figure out Kimmel. I don't watch Fallon anymore
Jimmy.
because Fallon is the only American who with a bigger ego and more narcissistic than Donald Trump.
Okay.
I mean, he's just nauseating. He has a lot of talent, but he's just so narcissistic. It's incredible.
Well, your
But the guy who
relative-
comes after him, who used to be on Saturday Night Live,
Oh, Seth Meyers.
Seth
He's
Meyers,
from New Hampshire.
particularly Colbert and Seth Meyers, I can't watch a rerun of them
Oh.
because their shows are so topical
Oh, okay.
that if you run a week or 2 week old show, it's like,
Yeah.
why watch?
ancient history.
And I must say, Colbert seems to take a lot of time off. Now, in the old days, when Johnny Carson would take a time off, he'd have a substitute host.
Yeah.
Right.
And they'd do an original show. I guess these guys are afraid to have a substitute, afraid they'll take their job or something.
So what do you think
Well-
about James? What about the British fellow, James Corden?
Well, if the guy who I just asked you about,
Seth Meyers?
if Seth Meyers is doing a rerun, I'll watch James
James.
Gordon.
Yeah, I watch James Gordon.
But him,
once in
I
a
could
while.
watch anytime
Yeah.
because his stuff is rarely at all topical.
And he does those karaoke car things where he has famous people
Those are
singing
cool.
with him. Those are cool.
Those are
Did
cool.
you see the one where he went to Liverpool with Paul McCartney?
Yes, yes. Now, the funny thing is when Fallon sings with people, it's quite enjoyable because Fallon really sings well.
yeah.
It's one of his many talents.
Yeah.
If he just could control. If I was producing his show, I'd cut out all those competitions he has
Oh,
because he is so overtly cutthroat and he's so annoyed anytime he loses one of those. He's trying to beat his guests into the ground.
but I think it's because they can't find. I think they do those because they can't find any kind of original material to create for him.
I mean,
know?
a good person sits down and talks, and that generates
But you
original
have to keep
material.
in mind that they're pandering to a different age set than ours.
Yeah, true.
Okay, I'll even be generous enough to say they're appealing to a different generation. And that's
Well,
quite true.
the president pulled us out of that old treaty, nuclear treaty.
Well, he's threatening
With
to,
Russia.
and there's some people who are saying it's a leverage proposition or something. I mean, after all, this treaty was signed by Ronald Reagan, not by Obama.
Yeah.
So he doesn't have quite the same passion to destroy it. It, of course, would be a dire, terrible, eon-shattering mistake.
Putin's
But that
already-
doesn't mean that he won't do it.
Putin already has thumbed his nose at this thing for the last 10 years.
You know who came out and said him that this would be a terrible mistake?
Yeah, that former-
Mikhail Gorbachev.
Yeah.
I didn't even know Mikhail Gorbachev was still
Oh,
around.
wow.
You know,
Okay.
this pulled him out of the woodwork.
Yes, I thought that was.
And another great foreign policy window onto the inadequate mind of our current occupant in foreign policy is, first of all, he seems to be on the verge of calling out the American army and telling them to
Shoot.
gun down Central American refugees, who for the most part are fleeing their countries because of
said that.
crushing poverty, which has brought on gang warfare and
all
one thing and another.
criminals, he said, yeah.
And his first move is to say that he wants to cut off all foreign aid to Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador because they can't keep their people in their own country. And first of all, obviously, that's the stupidest move you can make, because what is it that's forcing the people out of their country? And here we have, right at sort of the core of Central America, Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador. And how much great, generous foreign aid does the Trump administration give these three countries? Less than $500,000 combined.
Combined, wow.
And as you pointed out, he spends more than that on a party at Mar-a-Lago.
This is okay. All right.
What a guy. And now it's 2 weeks before the election. So now he has trotted out the idea that he's going to propose a 10% middle-class tax cut. Gee, do you think it's interesting that it's 2 weeks before the election? And do you, as I do, suspect that if he does trot out something called a 10% middle-class tax cut, it'll be a 75% tax cut for the 1%, right?
Well, you got to give to get, you know.
Yeah, give till it hurts, right?
Yeah,
everybody else.
Okay, all right. And what about this Harvard course?
Harvard course?
Yeah, the Harvard court case.
Oh, the court case,
Yeah,
yes.
still
very-
hanging.
Very well. It'll take a while. I actually wrote to Larry Bacow on this, and he actually answered me, which was quite nice. And you know, Larry Bacow, when he was installed, part of his little speech was to say that a Harvard man should be quick to understand and slow to judge. And I wrote to him. I said, I may be a little too quick to judge, but I can understand that this is a radical right-wing, white supremacist attempt to undermine affirmative action, and it is not for the benefit of any Asian student anywhere in the world. It is simply an attempt from white nationalists to try to do away with affirmative action.
Well,
and that
they have 20, it's now about 24%, the number of kids that are taken in the freshman class.
okay.
So how much?
Well, the point is they want to say that, you know, any of these factors shouldn't be allowed in student selection and admissions. But the fact of the matter is, we all know that you learn as much, if not more, from your fellow classmates as you do from the professors.
Very true.
And you learn next to nothing from people whose background, experience, culture, expectations are the same as yours. You learn from people who have different experiences and different backgrounds and things. And so constructing a class with useful diversity
Yeah.
is as important as any professor or laboratory or program or anything that you have. And that to surrender this right to construct, I mean, one of the kids, he wrote a thing in the New Yorker, or no, I'm sorry, it wasn't the New Yorker, it was some magazine. It was this whole thing that he was signed on to this suit because he didn't understand why he wasn't admitted in any Ivy League school, right? Mm-hmm. And then he goes on to say he ended up going to Williams. It was the perfect place for him. If he knew then what he knew now, he wouldn't even have applied to the Ivy League schools. Williams was perfect for him, you know, small, intimate relations with the things. He goes on and on and on and on about how Williams was perfect for him. And it never crosses his mind that perhaps the admissions people figured out that he was a better fit for someplace else.
Yeah.
Right.
And they probably did him a huge favor. And I wonder whether it's his ego that was bruised
Or his parents.
or his family's ego that was bruised. You
Anyways.
know, my kid didn't get into an Ivy
Because
League
they didn't have
school.
bragging
Okay.
rights.
Yeah.
So this thing is going to end up in the Supreme Court.
It is, and unfortunately, it
5-4.
has a good potential to be a serious blow
To
higher
affirmative
education
action.
in the United States,
Affirmative
and
action.
smart people will be going to England and Germany and other places to get an education. But by the time it makes it to the Supreme Court, with any luck, Don John Trump will be long gone and in the rearview mirror. And folks, it could start tomorrow with early voting, but it starts with the November 6th election. Donald Trump says anybody who votes for a Democrat is crazy. Once again, he has it exactly 180 degrees wrong.
But you know what's interesting? They think that some of these schools are going to get these inner city kids that they're saying are getting all the help, because most of the inner city high schools do not require them to have a second language. So they can't go to places where, you know how we have people coming over from other countries because they speak, of course, the language of their country, and English is their second language. And you can't have as many certain people crossing the pond to Germany and other countries for educations because they only speak English.
Right. So as I say, this is a clear attempt to destroy affirmative action, and it has a lot of victims. It has no beneficiaries. No beneficiaries
we'll
at all.
See how it plays out yet. It's got a ways to go.
I'll tell you there's another interesting white supremacist organization that I just discovered. It's called the Montpelier Association.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with Jefferson's home,
but
it's theoretically descendants of Jefferson. And the reason it's a white supremacist organization is they adamantly refuse to accept Sally Hemings' descendants. And they're currently boycotting the Montpelier physical building because they had the audacity to put up a Sally Hemings exhibit in the place. And there was this woman I was arguing with, and finally, in desperation or frustration, I said to her, "And what other white supremacist organizations do you belong to? Are you a dues-paying member of the Klan?" I just want to know. Michael, by body language, is telling me that it is now time for the big TV Unrehearsed Thespian Society's presentation for tonight, which is a particularly good one. I don't even have to tell you where this was in the vault, because interestingly enough, it's as timeless as Shakespeare. So it is entitled Unriveting. And the author has invented a word for a title. Action.
I'm writing a play.
Swell. That's unusual these days.
How many acts? Is it for the stage?
Don't you care about the plot?
Why?
It's important to the outcome.
The ending, I suppose.
No. How many characters?
Not sure yet.
When will you know?
When I finish.
Okay, that makes sense.
Will it be soon?
A few months.
Using a word processor?
Actually, I outline first.
Pen on a legal pad?
Yes.
So people still write with a pen the old-fashioned way?
I do.
But is it scrutable?
Not easy to read my notes.
But can you decipher them?
Sometimes it comes out better.
On the computer screen.
Listen, I want you to know I hate long monologues.
Me too.
Oh, good.
But cheaper to produce.
I could do it
How do you know?
because I'm very talented.
What an ego.
I also sing, dance, and do many accents.
Very commendable.
You left out acting.
Well, this guy recites some Shakespeare.
Perhaps.
If it's two, I could try out.
Who's writing this play?
Okay, what happens?
A man meets a woman.
Yeah, how original.
No, it's just another soap opera.
She loves another guy.
Fascinating.
That's it.
There's a dramatic interaction.
Oh, you mean violence?
Not exactly.
So what?
She wants to complete law school.
And he's a swindler.
And she's a compulsive gambler.
He's an alcoholic.
Substance abuse, that's very hot now.
Resonates with teenagers.
But her father's uncle, Max, loves her mother.
Okay, that's a new twist.
Different. I like it.
Well, that's 3 characters so far.
I'm making progress.
Where's all this take place?
Kansas City or St. Louis.
Heading for the heartland, the red states.
Is there a climax?
You know, a crisis?
I'm working on it.
How to get rid of Max?
Who's he?
Sylvia's infatuation.
But Wilson suspects.
He's the boyfriend.
You catch on quick.
Who's writing this anyway?
We're just trying to help.
Yeah, if I can get the page on. Get the sap flowing, you know that?
It's going well.
Okay, give us a brief inkling.
You've whetted our appetites.
I could eat now.
He works in a mailroom of an ad agency.
And he has a very pretty assistant.
Correct.
Aha.
Predictable.
Nah, but it's been done on TV.
You're both wrong.
Well, we've got good ideas, though.
Listen, I was in 2 high school plays.
This is real theater.
Off-Broadway?
Well, close
Okay, can I get there by bus?
He's serious.
and sensitive.
The soul of an artist.
All bottled up.
With a message for an audience.
Affirmative.
Is that a yes?
Certainly, he's a playwright.
I always wanted to be one.
Doesn't look it.
His name in lights, her name in lights, rather.
People shouting, auteur, auteur.
Auteur. Playwright, playwright.
Thank you.
I think Joe's got it.
Newspaper review.
One of our own.
Lots of hard work to get there.
You're gonna make it.
I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody.
What's that about?
Just an old memory.
Don't get maudlin, kid.
Bill Maudlin. Yeah, I knew him well.
Nothing can stop me.
You'll need a producer and a director.
And a set and props and lighting.
Roughed out on paper.
Takes place in a seedy bar.
1935, during the Depression.
Not the way I see it.
Surprise us.
They're on an old porch.
Having lemonade.
Playing gin rummy.
Whist.
Ooh.
Phone rings.
They must have money.
What about the father's uncle?
We never met him. We never meet him.
Too bad. He seemed like a nice chap.
Only her mother.
She's serving lemonade.
Okay, I like it better already.
The father's sick in the hospital.
So he could have a piano player.
Yeah, music always sets the tone.
This is not a silent movie.
I haven't heard much conversation yet.
Stella doesn't like being homeless.
What about Sylvia?
She's at the hospital.
Stella just finished her gig at the bar.
We changed that to a porch.
But it's cold outside.
Sounds like Chicago's South Side.
Who's writing this play?
Very belligerent.
If that's her attitude, maybe we should just leave.
Maybe gin rummy was better.
Anybody eat in this play?
Hark! I hear the sound of knocking.
Louder.
My knuckles hurt.
Is it the pizza delivery guy?
Not in 1935.
Okay, so we changed it to 75.
I like the sound of that.
This is a fallow time for me. Suddenly,
Horrible. She's contracted writer's block.
You mean?
We may have to finish it for her.
it's only momentary.
But you know, it could take 17 years to come back.
You don't care about yourself.
Think of your starving, destitute pals.
I don't want anybody to suffer.
Give it up. Where's the ark?
You're destroying my life.
Well, it doesn't have to be the end.
You'll be back on your feet in no time.
I think I like this approach more.
It's riveting, even without dialogue.
And dramatic content.
It would be about us.
And she thought of it all by herself. Bravo.
Bravo. And tonight after dinner, you'll go home.
Sit down at your desk.
Pick up a pencil and begin again.
And this time, for
Don't.
Christ's sake, don't fall asleep again, like our audience.
Yeah.
Blackout. Unriveting.
Unriveting.
Remember that. It's not a word, but it's a good title.
Have you ever seen the play Sylvia?
No.
Sylvia.
Sylvia's a play?
It's a play. It's Sylvia. There's a play Sylvia, and my friends are getting ready to actually do it again.
Who wrote it?
Yeah.
I forget who wrote it, but it's technically a 5-character piece, but done by 4 characters.
Oh.
Sylvia's a dog.
Oh, yeah, I read something about
And is there a live dog on stage?
No, it's
Okay.
play, the Sylvia is played by a woman. Yes. And Sarah Jessica Parker did it on Broadway.
Really?
Yeah. And
Does she have to be on all fours, or is she
at some point,
standing up?
she stands up, she runs around, and
Yeah.
sometimes she's hopping on him. And it's about this man who he loses his job, and his wife winds up going back to work, and then he goes to the park one day, and this dog befriends him, and it's this whole relationship that he
Changes
built with the
his
dog,
life.
changes his life, and then he encounters this fella, this really butch guy at the the dog park, but the same actor plays the socialite, the female socialite, and then the same actor plays this transgender person. You don't know if it's a man changing into a woman or a woman changing into a man, who interacts with Greg. It's really a good play.
Well, you got the president is trying to define
Oh, yes.
transgender.
The president's trying to say whatever they determined your genitalia were at the time of your birth,
Good.
you have to carry that forever. That's going to be the law.
Well,
These people are just so evil.
He's
It's
an
just
idiot.
incredible.
yeah, but
I was born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri,
yes.
and there's two stories out of St. Louis or out of Missouri which just make us feel better about living in the People's Republic of Massachusetts. One is that the Attorney General of Missouri is running against Claire McCaskill for the United States Senate. This guy had a very short and tempestuous career as the
president
Attorney
liked him.
General.
Yeah.
Just for an example, one of the things he did was to disband and get rid of the Environmental Protection Division of his office, and one of his chief aides was thrown out for sexual abuse.
Outside of that.
Of course, Donald would say, guilty until proven innocent, you know.
True.
So that's one. I mean, we also have the Secretary of State in Georgia who's running for governor in what looks to be a close election, and so he's pulled the registration of 53,000 people, who we noted last week are mainly people of darker complexion.
Okay.
And then they just voted in Missouri to reduce the St. Louis minimum wage from $10 an hour to $7 an hour. I mean, talk about swimming against the stream. These people ought to try swimming up the Mississippi to Cairo.
And pushing the things out of the way when they swim.
Small chunks of this, that, and the other
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. It's use the breaststroke. You know.
It's very funny when I always love the story about how the old boatmen on the Mississippi and the Missouri River, they'd take a large container and they'd dip up water and they'd let it sit until the sediment settled to the bottom, and then they'd drink what was on top.
Well, that's been cleaned off a few other.
You know, they'd make mud balls out of
Yeah.
what was left
Okay,
on
all
things.
right. Well, you know, we're indebted now. You know that before we hang up,
What?
we owe money, our national debt. We're in debt.
Sic semper.
Well, six semper paratus.
Yeah.
Okay. Or something. Anyways.
Well, maybe, you know, maybe DJ can just cancel that too, like he does with our treaties.
But he says he's ready to close
Unless,
our.
of course, some of it is owed to him.
Yeah.
He's going to close our borders.
Going to send the military to close the border.
Yeah, and-
Now, what's he mean by that? Of course, whenever he makes any of these pronouncements, he makes them on Twitter. So
Yeah.
by necessity, they have no explanation.
Yeah, because there's
Right.
only what.
And
only
of course, he
about 40
has no
words.
explanation for anything. Like, what evidence that there's Middle Easterns hidden in the convoy? But what does it mean, close the border? Is he going to cut down commercial traffic? Is he going to stop all the trucks at the border?
They're going to be very busy building the wall.
No
if you
more
wanna know.
imports.
That's what's going on.
Nobody going to Acapulco. I mean,
Yeah.
what's it mean? You know,
Well-
he's going to send the 82nd Airborne down there with their machine guns trained across the border and shoot anything that moves. I
Well-
wouldn't put it past him.
I think I'm going to retire to Canada.
Well, we were thinking. I
always like ice skating
I was kind of
anyways.
thinking Ireland.
How about something warm in the Caribbean? Good.
Well, as I was saying,
Ireland.
I could live well in Nicaragua, but I don't seem to be able to learn Spanish well enough for things. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Fun Show here at Big TV, and we will, with all intents and purposes, be back a week from tonight.
29.
And when we're back from a week from tonight, it'll be 1 week before the most important election in Massachusetts in the United States in world history. So we wish you all the best. We'll see you next week. And remember, you can vote tomorrow if you want. Just make sure you know how you want to vote on the questions before you show up to vote.
And bring a pencil, because they might not have a pen.
Oh.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.